What if I told you that your heart could be dying long before you ever feel pain? Every year, millions of people ignore the quiet warnings until one day it's too late. They think it's just age, just stress, just being out of shape. But the truth is, heart failure doesn't arrive suddenly. It builds silently, month after month, while your body tries to speak to you. It starts small. A short breath when you climb the stairs. A restless night where you can't lie flat. Shoes that suddenly feel tighter. You tell yourself, I'm fine, but your heart is begging you to listen. I've seen it too many times. Good people, kind souls, who noticed the signs but brushed them off. And by the time they came to see me, their hearts were already struggling to keep up. So before you scroll past or say, that won't happen to me, I want you to take a deep breath and listen. Because what you'll hear in the next few minutes might just save your life. 1. Orthopnea. You know, there's something deeply human about the way we sleep. At night, when the world quiets down, we finally let go. We lie back, close our eyes, and trust that our body will take care of the rest. But what happens when even that simple act becomes a struggle? Have you ever noticed yourself propping up an extra pillow? Or maybe 2, or even 3? Because lying flat just feels uncomfortable, like there's a weight pressing on your chest? You might not think much of it. You might tell yourself, it's just heartburn, maybe sinus pressure. I just like sleeping upright. But what if it's not just that? What if your heart is quietly asking for help? A patient I remember well. Her name was Linda, 72 years old, always cheerful, always saying she was fine. One day, during a routine visit, I asked her, how have you been sleeping? She smiled and said, oh, good. I've just been using 3 pillows lately. Helps me breathe better. And she laughed, like it was nothing. But I could see it, that tiny, unspoken worry in her eyes. When we did her exam, her lungs had that faint crackling sound, a telltale sign of fluid buildup. Her heart was struggling to pump blood efficiently, and when she lay flat, gravity no longer helped keep fluid down in her legs. That fluid began creeping upward into her lungs. That's why she needed those pillows. It wasn't about comfort, it was survival. This condition has a name. It's called orthopnea. It simply means shortness of breath when lying flat. But behind that simple phrase lies a powerful truth. Your heart and lungs are not working in harmony. You see, when you lie down, the fluid that had settled in your legs during the day redistributes throughout your body. A healthy heart can handle that just fine. It adjusts, pumps a little harder, balances the pressure. But when the heart is weak, it can't keep up. The blood starts to back up into the veins that connect to your lungs. Those delicate lung tissues begin to fill with fluid. And suddenly, something as natural as lying down feels like drowning. If you've ever found yourself sitting up in bed gasping for air, or sleeping in a recliner because it's more comfortable, I want you to pause. That might be your body's way of saying, I need help. And here's what's tricky. It creeps in slowly. You might start with 1 extra pillow, then 2. You tell yourself, it's just a preference. But over time, you can't remember when you last slept flat. I once had a man named Robert tell me, Doc, I haven't slept in my bed for years. My recliner feels better. When I asked him why, he said, because when I lie down, I feel like an elephant is on my chest. That elephant wasn't his imagination. It was the fluid pressing on his lungs, the direct result of his heart's declining strength. Medical studies show that up to 80% of people with heart failure experience orthopnea at some point. But here's what's heartbreaking. Most of them don't recognize it as a sign of heart trouble. They think it's allergies, a bad mattress, or just the way their body is now. And I get it. We all want simple explanations. It's easier to believe you just need a new pillow than to face the possibility that your heart is struggling. But here's something important I've learned over the years. The heart never lies. It may whisper. It may speak softly through small inconveniences, but it never lies. And if you listen carefully, you can hear what it's trying to tell you. So let me ask you this. Have you found yourself needing to sleep propped up lately? Do you wake up coughing at night or feel breathless until you sit up? Do you sleep better in your recliner than in your own bed? If the answer is yes, please don't ignore it. These are not just signs of aging. They're signs of a heart that's trying to keep up, but can't do it alone anymore. You see, the heart and lungs are partners. When one begins to struggle, The other has to work harder. That's why shortness of breath shows up first at night, because that's when gravity stops helping and your heart must do the work all by itself. It reminds me of something I once told a group of older patients. I said, your heart doesn't clock out when you go to sleep. It's still there, working, fighting for you, even when you're resting. The least we can do is listen when it's tired. And that's what orthopnea really is, your heart saying, I'm tired. Now the good news is this, if you catch it early, it's treatable. Sometimes it's as simple as adjusting medications, reducing salt intake, or helping your heart pump more effectively. In many cases, patients who came in early were able to sleep flat again within weeks. Linda, the woman I mentioned earlier, she did exactly that. She took her diagnosis seriously, changed her diet, took her meds, started gentle exercise, and began tracking her symptoms. 6 months later, she told me with tears in her eyes, Doc, I slept flat last night for the first time in a year. That moment, that little victory, is what early awareness can do. So if you or someone you love has been stacking pillows lately, or waking up short of breath, don't brush it off. Don't wait until it gets worse. You deserve to breathe freely, to rest peacefully without fear or struggle. Because sleep is supposed to heal you, not hurt you. And your heart, that faithful rhythm that's carried you through every single day of your life, deserves a chance to rest too. So tonight, as you lie down, listen, not just to the quiet around you, but to the rhythm inside you. If it feels uneasy, if something feels off, promise me this, you'll talk to your doctor. Because the earlier you listen, the longer your heart will keep singing for you. 2. Fatigue and reduced exercise tolerance. There's a quiet kind of tiredness that doesn't go away. It's not the kind that a nap can fix or a cup of coffee can chase off. It's deeper, like the light inside you has dimmed just a little, day by day. Have you ever felt that way? You wake up, the sun is out, the house is still. You think, I should take a walk, maybe work in the garden. But the thought alone feels heavy. You sit down instead. And somehow, the morning disappears. It's easy to tell yourself, I'm just getting older. But what if it's not age? What if it's your heart, quietly struggling to keep up with the rhythm of your life? I remember a woman named Margaret. She was 68, retired, loved tending to her flowers. One day, she told me, Doctor, I used to walk around my yard all afternoon. Now I can't even finish watering the plants without feeling like I've run a mile. She said it with a smile, but behind that smile was worry. It's silly, she added. I just get tired easier, that's all. It's probably just my age catching up with me. But when we ran her tests, her heart told a different story. Her heart wasn't pumping strong enough. Each beat sent out less blood, less oxygen. Her muscles, her brain, her organs, all were quietly running on less energy than before. That's what heart failure fatigue feels like. Not just tired, but drained. You lose the simple joys of movement, one small piece at a time. I told Margaret something that made her pause. I said, you know, your body is like a house. When the lights start to flicker, it's not because you forgot how to turn on the switch. It's because the power line is weak. Her heart was that power line. When the heart weakens, it tries its best to protect you, sending what little energy it has to your brain and vital organs. But that means your muscles, your arms, your legs, they start running on empty. You climb a few stairs and feel like you've scaled a mountain. You carry groceries and have to stop halfway. You used to sing in the kitchen, now you just stand there, catching your breath between verses. And it happens so slowly, so quietly, that you start adapting without realizing it. You stop walking as far. You take more breaks. You tell yourself, I'm just slowing down a bit. But it's not just slowing down, it's your heart whispering, I can't keep up like I used to. A lot of people misunderstand fatigue. They think it's about willpower. They say, I should push myself more, I'm just being lazy. But this kind of tiredness isn't about motivation, it's about oxygen. When your heart doesn't pump enough blood, your body doesn't get enough oxygen to turn into energy. So you start running on fumes. It's like trying to keep a fire burning with damp wood. No matter how much you try, the flame just won't catch. Scientific studies have shown that this type of fatigue can appear months before other signs of heart failure. It's the body's early warning signal, gentle, almost polite, before more serious symptoms arrive.
One of my patients once told me something that stuck with me. He said, "Doc, I don't feel pain. I just feel like I'm fading." That word fading stayed with me because that's what it's like. You don't collapse. You just quietly lose pieces of yourself, your stamina, your hobbies, your spark. And I know how tempting it is to explain it away, to say, well, everyone gets tired. Yes, that's true. But when you start noticing that everyday things, brushing your hair, walking to the mailbox, carrying laundry, feel like effort, that's not ordinary tired. That's a tiredness that deserves your attention. Here's a simple way to tell the difference. If rest helps, it's probably just fatigue. But if rest doesn't fix it, if the tiredness lingers no matter how long you sleep, it's time to listen closer. When you feel winded after doing something small, when you start to plan your day around your energy instead of your interests, when you find yourself saying, maybe later, more often than let's go, that's your heart asking for help. And here's the beautiful truth. If you catch it early, that energy can come back. Your body wants to heal. Your heart wants to work right again. Modern medicine, medication, simple changes, they can all give your heart a chance to recover its rhythm and strength. Margaret is living proof of that. After a few months of treatment and gentle exercise, she told me, "I can water my garden again. Not all at once, but I finish it. And you know what, doctor? The flowers look brighter now." I smiled and told her, maybe they're not blooming. Maybe it's you. So if you're listening to this and you've been feeling that quiet, heavy tiredness, the one that steals your mornings and blurs your afternoons, please don't ignore it. You don't have to accept exhaustion as the price of growing older. Your heart has carried you through a lifetime, every memory, every joy, every heartbreak. It deserves a little care in return. Maybe it's time to ask it how it's doing. Maybe it's time to give it a chance to rest, recover, and beat strong again. Because life isn't meant to be lived half awake. You still have stories to tell, walks to take, sunsets to see. And your heart, if you listen, is ready to take you there.
3. Shortness of breath during simple activities. You know, I've met hundreds of people in my career who told me the same thing. They said, "Doc, I thought I was just getting older." And maybe you've said that to yourself too. You walk up a short flight of stairs, and suddenly you have to stop to catch your breath. You take your groceries from the car, and your chest feels heavy, like you just ran a marathon. You tell yourself, "I'm just out of shape. It's been a long week." But let me tell you something. Sometimes it's not age. It's not just fatigue. It's your heart whispering for help. I want you to imagine this. Inside your chest, your heart has been working tirelessly every second of every day for decades, beating over 100,000 times a day, quietly doing its job, never asking for attention. But when it starts to struggle, when it can't pump enough oxygen-rich blood to your muscles, you begin to feel it. Not immediately, not dramatically, but subtly. It starts with a little breathlessness during things that used to be easy. A patient of mine, Mary, she's 67. She told me one day, "I used to walk my dog every morning, just 2 blocks, nothing big. Then, little by little, I started stopping halfway. I thought maybe it was the cold air or that I needed better shoes. But what was really happening was that her heart was slowly losing its strength. It wasn't keeping up with her body's demand. And every step she took, her lungs were working overtime to make up for what her heart couldn't deliver. That's why she felt breathless. That's why you might too. And here's what science tells us. According to the American Heart Association, shortness of breath during ordinary activity, something we call exertional dyspnea, is one of the earliest and most common signs of heart failure. It often appears months before other symptoms, months before swelling, before fatigue, before you even realize something's wrong. But because it comes on so gradually, people ignore it. We adapt. We stop walking as far. We take the elevator instead of the stairs. We slow down thinking it's just part of getting older. Yet deep inside, your heart might be struggling to keep up. Now, I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying it because I've seen too many people wait too long. And by the time they come in, what could have been managed rawly has turned into a real battle. So I want you to pause for a second and ask yourself, When was the last time you felt short of breath doing something that used to be easy? Do you get winded walking from the parking lot to the grocery store? Do you need to take a break halfway through making your bed or carrying the laundry? Those little moments, they matter. They're your body's early warning system. Here's what's really happening inside. When your heart doesn't pump efficiently, less oxygen reaches your muscles. Your lungs sense that shortage and start working harder, making you feel breathless. But unlike being out of shape, this breathlessness doesn't go away with rest or training. It slowly gets worse over time. And I know it's tempting to brush it off, especially if you've lived an active, independent life. No one likes to think of themselves as sick. We all want to believe we just need a bit more exercise, a better diet, or a good night's sleep. But heart failure doesn't always shout. It whispers. It speaks through small changes, the kind you can miss if you're not paying attention. Let me tell you something that still sticks with me. A few years ago, I had a patient named George, retired firefighter, strong as an ox. One day, he came into my office and said, "Doc, I don't know what's wrong. I used to climb ladders for a living. Now I get out of breath tying my shoes." That one line hit me hard. Out of breath, tying my shoes. That's not just aging. That's the heart waving a white flag. After a few tests, we found that George's heart function had dropped to almost half of normal. He had early-stage heart failure, but because we caught it in time, we were able to help him get stronger. Medication, small changes in his diet, walking every day, monitoring his weight. It gave him years of good health back. That's the power of noticing early. So here's what I want you to remember. If shortness of breath is becoming part of your daily life, if it sneaks up during the little things, not just after big effort, it deserves attention. Not panic, not fear, just awareness. Because the earlier you act, the better your heart can recover. Modern medicine today is remarkable. There are treatments that can help your heart work more efficiently, reduce symptoms, even reverse some of the damage. But the key is catching it before it becomes a crisis. You see, your heart is like an old friend. It's been with you through every laugh, every heartbreak, every moment of your life. And just like any old friend, sometimes it needs you to listen. So listen. Listen to the shortness of breath that wasn't there before. Listen to the little pauses your body takes to rest. Listen before it has to shout. Because sometimes the difference between just getting older and getting sicker is simply whether you pay attention to what your heart is trying to say. Take care of that rhythm that's been beating inside you all these years. It's done so much for you. Maybe it's time you do something for it.
4. Paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea. There's a kind of silence that only happens at night. Everything is calm, the streets quiet, the house still, the air almost sacred. It's supposed to be the hour of peace, until suddenly, it's not. You open your eyes. You're gasping, not for a dream, but for air. It feels like someone just pulled the oxygen out of the room. Your chest tightens, your heart races, your body panics. You sit up, maybe you even swing your legs over the bed, and suddenly you can breathe again. The air feels cool, sharp, almost metallic. You tell yourself it's just anxiety, maybe a bad dream. And maybe that's easier to believe, but deep down, a part of you knows something isn't right. That's what we call paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea, or PND. It means sudden nighttime shortness of breath, and it's one of the quiet cries of a tired heart. I once had a patient, Mr. Jackson, 68 years old, a gentleman, the kind who always started his mornings with a black coffee and a newspaper. He told me, "Doc, I wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, sitting on the edge of my bed, panting, like I just ran a mile in my sleep." At first, he blamed his old mattress, then stress, then maybe bad dreams. But when we listened to his heart and lungs, the truth unfolded. Fluid, again, was creeping into his lungs during sleep. When he lay flat, his weakened heart couldn't move that fluid fast enough. The lungs began to fill, the oxygen levels dropped, and the brain, in its desperate wisdom, jolted him awake before it was too late. His body was saving him from drowning in his own sleep. It sounds dramatic, I know, but this is how the heart speaks when it's under pressure, not through pain, but through breathlessness. And the cruel part is it often happens when you're resting, when you least expect it. For many people, these episodes start gently.
Maybe once a month, then once a week. You wake up coughing or breathless, open a window, take a few deep breaths, and it passes. But over time, it becomes more frequent, until one day, you find yourself afraid to fall asleep, afraid it'll happen again. That fear alone is exhausting. Medically, PND happens because when you lie down, the blood from your lower body redistributes. Your heart, already struggling, can't handle the extra volume. Blood backs up into your lungs, filling tiny air sacs with fluid. You wake up gasping, your body fighting to restore oxygen. But emotionally, it's the body's version of a nightmare. Except you don't wake up from fear, you wake up to survive. Let me tell you something I've learned after years of listening to people's hearts, both literally and figuratively. The scariest thing about heart failure isn't death, it's the moments when you can't breathe. Because in that instant, you realize how fragile life is, how every single breath we take for granted is actually a miracle. One woman once told me, through tears, "Doc, I didn't realize how precious breathing was until I woke up one night unable to do it." And she was right. It's not the grand moments that define us. It's those silent, gasping seconds when the body pleads for air and the heart begs for help. But here's the thing, this isn't the end of the story. Because if you recognize it early, you can stop it. PND is one of those warning signs that says, act now, and you can still turn things around. Medications, dietary changes, managing salt and fluid intake, and treating the underlying heart condition, all of it can make a world of difference. When Mr. Jackson started treatment, I remember the smile on his face during his next checkup. He said, "Doc, I slept through the night for the first time in months." And that small sentence meant everything. Because sleep isn't just rest, it's the body's reset button. And when your heart is calm enough to let you sleep, you know healing has begun. So if this sounds familiar, if you or someone you love wakes up breathless in the middle of the night, coughing, gasping, or needing to sit upright just to breathe, please don't ignore it. Don't wait until it becomes a nightly routine. Don't chalk it up to age, stress, or a bad pillow. This isn't weakness. It's your heart calling out for a little help before it gives up. The truth is, the heart doesn't fail overnight. It whispers first. It warns you, in the quietest hours, when the world is asleep and you are wide awake, searching for air. And if you listen, truly listen, you might just save your own life. So tonight, when the world goes silent and you lay your head down, remember this. If you wake up breathless, don't just catch your breath. Catch the message, because that moment of fear might be your second chance.
5. Peripheral edema. Have you ever looked down at your feet at the end of the day and thought, they look a little swollen today? Maybe you brushed it off. You told yourself, it's just the heat, or I've been sitting too long. And yes, sometimes that's true, but sometimes it's something more. I remember a patient of mine, Ellen, 72 years old, soft-spoken, the kind of woman who still baked cookies for her grandkids every weekend. She came to me one afternoon and said, "Doctor, my shoes feel tighter these days. I thought I was just gaining a bit of weight, but it's strange because only my feet seem bigger." When I looked closer, her ankles were puffy, and when I pressed gently with my finger, the skin stayed indented for a few seconds before rising back up. That's not normal aging. That's fluid retention. That's the heart, once again, sending a quiet signal that it's under strain. You see, when your heart weakens, it can't pump blood efficiently. That means blood moves more slowly through your veins, and the pressure inside them starts to build. Eventually, that pressure forces fluid out of the blood vessels and into the surrounding tissues, most often in the lower parts of the body, your feet, your ankles, your legs. Gravity pulls it down, and the swelling begins. That's what we call peripheral edema. It's not painful at first. It doesn't scream for attention. But it's there, a quiet reminder that something inside isn't working quite right. I often ask my patients this simple question. When you take off your socks at night, do you notice the marks stay on your skin for a while? Or have your shoes suddenly started feeling tight, even though your weight hasn't really changed? Because those tiny details can mean a lot. They can be the earliest visible signs that the heart is struggling to keep up. For Ellen, it started with her shoes. Then one morning, she noticed her wedding ring felt snug. Her watch left a deeper mark, and her legs felt heavy,
When she walked, she said it was like carrying sandbags around her ankles. We ran some tests, and yes, her heart function was down. But here's the good part. We caught it early. With treatment, careful diet changes, and daily monitoring, her swelling went down. She came back a month later and smiling and said, "My shoes fit again." It sounds simple, but to her that meant life was returning to normal. Swelling doesn't always mean heart failure, of course. It can be caused by kidney disease, liver issues, certain medications, or simply sitting for long periods. But here's the key difference. Heart-related swelling tends to get worse as the day goes on, and better when you wake up. That's because during the day, gravity pulls fluid down into your legs. At night, when you lie flat, some of that fluid returns to circulation, and that's when people start feeling short of breath while lying down, like we talked about earlier. See how all these signs connect? Your body isn't showing random symptoms. It's telling one continuous story. What I find so fascinating and heartbreaking is how easily we ignore these early warnings. We tell ourselves little stories. It's just age. It's just salt. It's just the summer heat. But your body doesn't lie. It doesn't exaggerate. It just quietly reveals the truth, if you're willing to look. Science explains it clearly. When the heart can't pump enough, the kidneys sense less blood flow and think the body is dehydrated, so they hold on to more sodium and water, a survival mechanism from ancient times. But in this modern context, that help actually hurts because it adds more volume to a heart that's already tired. And that's when the ankles start swelling, the belly may feel bloated, and weight can climb a few pounds in just days. That's why for patients with heart failure, I always say, your bathroom scale might tell me more than any blood test. A sudden gain of 2 or 3 pounds in a short time means fluid is building up. It's not fat, it's water, and your heart is quietly drowning in it. So here's what I want you to remember. Swelling isn't just a cosmetic thing. It's not about how your legs look. It's about what your heart is trying to say. If you notice that your socks leave deep marks at night, or your shoes fit differently from morning to night, or your legs feel unusually heavy, please pay attention, because the earlier we find it, the easier it is to treat. Ellen's story had a happy ending. She started walking more, watched her salt intake, took her medications faithfully, and checked her weight every morning. She told me once, "I used to think my swollen feet were just a sign I was getting older. Now I know it was my heart asking me to take care of it." And that's what I want you to take away from this. Your heart doesn't always cry out in pain. Sometimes it whispers through your feet, through your shoes, through the quiet marks left by your socks at the end of the day. So tonight, when you take off your shoes, take a moment. Look, notice, because every small change tells a bigger story. And that story might just be your second chance.
6. Irregular or rapid heartbeat. Have you ever been lying in bed at night, the house quiet, no sound but the ticking of a clock, and suddenly you feel it, that strange, heavy thud in your chest, then another one, then a quick flutter like your heart just skipped a step or started dancing to a rhythm only it could hear. You sit up, place your hand over your chest and whisper to yourself, "What was that?" And for a moment, you wait, frozen, wondering if it'll stop or if it will stop for good. That's a feeling many people know too well, and yet most of us pretend it's nothing. We blame coffee, stress, excitement, maybe even the weather. But sometimes it's not that simple. I once met a man named Robert. He was 64, a retired engineer, sharp-minded, always curious. He told me, "Doc, sometimes I feel my heart racing out of nowhere. No pain, no warning, just a wild rhythm in my chest." He laughed nervously and said, "Maybe it's just me being anxious." But when we put him on a heart monitor, the truth showed itself. He was having atrial fibrillation, a common but serious type of irregular heartbeat. His heart wasn't beating in sync anymore. It was quivering, fast, uneven, chaotic. And here's the dangerous part. When the heart beats irregularly, it doesn't pump blood effectively. That blood can pool, form clots, and travel to the brain, causing a stroke. It can also strain the heart muscle, slowly leading to heart failure. So yes, it's more than just anxiety. Now, not every flutter or skipped beat means something serious. Our hearts can react to caffeine, dehydration, or strong emotions. Even happiness can make it race. But there's a difference between a heart that responds and a heart that struggles. The difference is in the pattern. If you often feel your heart pounding fast for no reason, or beating irregularly, like it's missing beats, jumping, or vibrating inside your chest, that's a sign worth listening to. It's your body's way of saying, something's off balance. Robert told me once, "It's funny, Doc, I used to trust my heart without question. I never even thought about it, but now I can't stop listening to it." And I understood exactly what he meant. When your heartbeat, that quiet, constant rhythm of your life, becomes unpredictable, it shakes something deep inside you. It makes you realize how fragile everything is. Because our heartbeat isn't just biology, it's the soundtrack of our existence. Every laugh, every tear, every memory you've ever had, they've all happened to the rhythm of that same pulse. So when that rhythm changes, you feel it, not just in your chest, but in your spirit. Let me explain what's happening in simple terms. Your heart has its own electrical system, tiny sparks that tell it when to beat, how fast, and in what order. When that system gets disrupted by aging, stress, high blood pressure, or disease, the signals become chaotic. Your heart might start beating too fast, tachycardia, too slow, bradycardia, or completely out of sync, arrhythmia. And when that happens, the heart becomes less efficient. It pumps less blood, oxygen drops, and you might start feeling dizzy, weak, breathless, or just uneasy, as if something deep inside isn't right. Some people describe it as butterflies in the chest. Others say it's like a bird trapped inside. But the truth is, your body's trying to get your attention before something worse happens. A patient once asked me, "Doc, how do I know when to worry?" And I told her this: if your heartbeat ever feels like it's writing its own song, unpredictable, irregular, and louder than it should be, that's when you should check. Your heart shouldn't surprise you. It should accompany you. Steady, faithful, predictable. If it starts acting differently, don't panic, but don't ignore it either. Because the earlier we find the cause, the easier it is to fix. Sometimes it's as simple as adjusting medication, managing stress, or cutting back on caffeine. Sometimes it means treating an underlying rhythm disorder that, if left unchecked, could lead to heart failure or stroke. When Robert finally got his diagnosis, we started treatment right away. Blood thinners, rhythm control medication, a few lifestyle changes. Months later, he came back smiling. He told me, "You know, Doc, I can sleep again. I don't lie awake waiting for the next flutter." And I said to him, "That's because your heart finally found its rhythm again." It's a beautiful thing when the body finds peace. When you realize that quiet inside your chest isn't just silence, it's life, steady and strong. So tonight, if you find yourself lying awake, hand over your heart, listening to that steady beat, take a moment to appreciate it, because every beat is a promise. Every rhythm is a reminder that your heart is still fighting for you every second of every day. But if that rhythm ever starts to stumble, to race, or to flutter, don't look away. Don't wait for it to pass. Because sometimes the heart's wild rhythm isn't a sign of strength. It's a whisper saying, "Help me, before I can't keep the beat anymore." Your heart has carried you through every story of your life. Don't let its next story be one of silence. Listen to it now, while it's still speaking.
7. Rapid weight gain in just a few days. You know, most of us think of weight gain as something that happens slowly, over months, even years. But what if I told you that gaining just a few pounds in a couple of days could be your heart crying for help? I had a patient once, let's call her Mary. She came in one morning, cheerful as always, holding her little notebook. She said, "Doctor, I don't understand. I haven't changed my diet, but I gained almost 5 pounds this week." At first she laughed it off, but when I looked at her ankles, a bit swollen, and listened to her heart, I knew this wasn't about calories or food. It was fluid. Her body was holding on to water because her heart couldn't keep up. You see, when your heart starts to weaken, it struggles to pump blood as efficiently as before. Your kidneys, trying to help, start retaining salt and water, And all that extra fluid doesn't just disappear, it settles quietly in your tissues, your legs, your belly, and on the scale. That's why doctors often tell patients with heart problems to weigh themselves every single morning, because sometimes the scale tells the truth before your body does. So I want you to imagine this. You wake up one morning and notice your ring feels tighter, your shoes snugger, maybe your stomach feels bloated. And when you step on the scale, it's up by 2-3 pounds. You think, maybe it's something I ate, but deep down, something feels off. That's not just weight. That's water your body can't move because your heart is struggling to do its job. And here's the thing, your body is incredibly wise. It gives you clues long before things get dangerous. That's why sudden weight gain, even as little as 2 or 3 pounds in a day, or more than 5 pounds in a week, matters more than most people realize. Mary's story had a happy ending. Because she paid attention, she came in early. We adjusted her medication, removed the excess fluid, and her breathing eased within days. But I've seen others who ignored that same sign, thinking it was just a bad week, until they ended up in the hospital, gasping for air, wondering how it got so bad so fast. So let me ask you, when was the last time you stepped on a scale, not for vanity, but for awareness? Not to judge your body, but to understand it. Because that number isn't just about appearance. Sometimes it's about survival. The American Heart Association has a simple rule. If you gain more than 2 to 3 pounds in a day, or more than 5 pounds in a week, it's time to call your doctor. It doesn't mean you're in danger yet, but it means your heart might be waving a little red flag, asking you to listen before it's too late. And I know what some of you might be thinking. I feel fine. I'm just getting older. I'll check it later. But here's the truth I've learned after decades in medicine. Heart failure doesn't shout. It whispers. It's quiet, patient, and often disguised as normal aging, until one day it's not. So please, weigh yourself regularly. Notice the changes, not with fear, but with curiosity and care. Think of it as a simple conversation between you and your heart, because that small change on the scale could be the sign that saves your life. I often tell my patients, your heart has been there for you through every moment, every laugh, every heartbreak, every breath. The least we can do is listen when it tries to speak. So the next time your weight suddenly jumps, pause. Don't blame the food or the scale or your metabolism. Ask your heart how it's doing. Maybe, just maybe, it's trying to tell you it needs a little help.
8. Frequent urination at night. Have you noticed that lately you're waking up more often at night to use the bathroom? Once, twice, maybe 3 or 4 times? You tell yourself it's just getting older, or maybe you drank too much water before bed. But sometimes, those midnight trips are your body's quiet way of saying, something's not right. I remember a gentleman named Robert, 71, retired carpenter, proud grandfather of 6. He came to see me because his sleep was constantly interrupted. "Doc," he said, "I can't sleep more than 2 hours without having to get up. I'm exhausted." He thought it was his prostate. That's the usual suspect for men his age. But after running a few tests, we discovered the real reason: his heart. Here's what happens. During the day, gravity pulls fluid down into your legs and feet. If your heart isn't pumping strongly enough, it can't move all that fluid back up. So it sits there, swelling your ankles, making your shoes tighter. But when you finally lie down at night, gravity is no longer holding that fluid in your legs. It moves back into your bloodstream. Your kidneys, suddenly flooded with extra fluid, go to work, and that's when you find yourself getting up again and again through the night. You see, it's not the bathroom that's the problem. It's the heart behind it. When I explained this to Robert, he just sat there, quiet for a while. Then he said something I'll never forget. "So my heart can't even rest while I sleep?" And I told him, that's exactly it. Your heart has been working overtime, all day, all night, trying to keep up. It's a strange thing, isn't it? The very moment we lie down to rest, that's when our heart's struggle becomes most visible. We think it's age. We think it's normal. But it's not always normal. Sometimes it's a sign that your body's balance is shifting, that your heart is tired and needs help. And here's something most people don't realize. This symptom often appears before shortness of breath, before swelling, before fatigue becomes obvious. Frequent nighttime urination, what doctors call nocturia, can be one of the earliest signs of heart failure. Science backs this up. Studies show that many heart failure patients notice this change weeks or even months before they feel any chest discomfort. But because it seems so ordinary, so harmless, they ignore it until it becomes something much bigger. So if you find yourself waking up night after night to use the bathroom, ask yourself, is this new? Is it happening more often? Do I notice my letters feeling heavier during the day? Because your body might be trying to tell you what your heart hasn't said out loud yet. I often tell my patients, pay attention not just to how you live your days, but how you sleep your nights. Because the night reveals what the day hides. After we treated Robert's heart failure, something beautiful happened. He came back 3 weeks later, smiling. "Doc, I finally slept through the night," he said. And I could see the relief in his face. It wasn't just about sleep. It was about peace. His body was finally at rest because his heart was finally at ease. So tonight, when you wake up to use the bathroom again, don't just check the clock. Take a moment. Notice how your body feels. Are your legs swollen? Is your breathing easy? And if something feels off, don't ignore it. Your body doesn't wake you up for no reason. Sometimes it's trying to protect you. Getting older doesn't mean accepting every discomfort as normal. It means becoming wiser, learning to tell the difference between what's harmless and what's a warning. And maybe, just maybe, that quiet walk to the bathroom at 2 a.m. isn't an inconvenience at all. Maybe it's your heart's way of whispering, "Please, take care of me. I'm still fighting for you." As we grow older, our bodies begin to speak in softer voices. Not through words, but through feelings. A little fatigue here, a swollen ankle there, a breath that doesn't come as easily as it used to. And too often, we call it just age. But sometimes it's not age. It's your heart whispering, asking you to slow down, to listen, to care. Your heart has carried you through every joy, every loss, every laugh that made your chest ache. It deserves to be heard. Because when you listen early, when you notice the signs, you give it a chance to heal, and you give yourself the gift of more mornings, more moments, more life. So tonight, before you close your eyes, place a hand over your chest. Feel that steady rhythm. That's your heart, still fighting for you. Now it's your turn to fight for it.